What is going on, ladies, gentlemen? Welcome to a early edition of the weekend roundup, called an emergency edition, kind of. Just decided to do this today instead of waiting until normal like Monday morning with everything that happened, the drama we saw on an incredibly important weekend across Europe, not just in England. But of course, that's where we're going to start with what happened on the final day of the Premier League season. And it always becomes a question when you get to this point, and it's something I've been talking about in the past month or so, is are we going to actually get the thrills, the twists, the turns on that final day? Liverpool kept it competitive. Manchester City dropped a couple points to make it even more competitive with that West Ham draw. But are we going to truly get something that is exciting from start to finish on match day 38? Because this is the third time since Sergio Aguero scored at the end of the 2011-2012 season, the title has been decided by fewer than 7 points. Not great in terms of parity, but this has happened twice before. 2013-14, 2018-19. All three of these, City end up edging Liverpool. Liverpool on the wrong side of it all three times. But 13-14, City got a 2-0 win over West Ham to hold on to their lead. Wasn't like there was a lot of uncertainty there. And then, of course, 18-19, it looked like there might be some drama. Brighton went up on Manchester City, but Sergio Aguero scored right after. They were up at halftime and ended up with 4 unanswered goals. By the time we got to the middle of the second half, there was no doubt who was going to win the league. That's what makes this different. And that combined with what we saw in the relegation battle is what easily makes this the best closing to a Premier League season since 2011-2012. You're not going to you're just not going to top that. That's a once in a generation type series of events. But we did get kind of our once in a decade thrilling finish here. And we get it because the way that this all unfolded was just kind of perfect. And for a while there, we were going into the Manchester City, despite losing 1-0 or 2-0, is going to win on goal difference, which is something I kept talking about because it was something that was changing in this battle for the title when these teams just kind of kept winning, and I mean there wasn't too much else to say. But at one point, Liverpool did have that goal difference edge, and the way Manchester City had been playing, and Liverpool not having a perfect finish to the end of the season, that swung back in Manchester City's favor. And so, even when that second Aston Villa goal went in, that was still Manchester City's title. Now, of course, the problem and what that draw with West Ham did for Liverpool was put it in a situation where if Manchester City don't win and Liverpool do, Liverpool are going to win. And so you had this situation where Liverpool go down but equalize fairly quickly. So they're at 1-1. City's down 2-0. And all you need is a goal from Liverpool at Anfield, and you're always going to bet on that happening, especially with this manager and this group of players. And then City start going, get 1, get 2. So now they're drawing, which gives them the title on points, so they don't win it on goal difference. But the reality still exists that they are not in control of this anymore. Liverpool are the ones who are going to determine this. And then comes goal 2 and goal 3. City get 3 in 6 minutes. And all of a sudden it's 3-2, and Manchester City end up doing what they were always expected to do, which is win this game and take care of the Premier League by themselves without needing to worry about Liverpool. Liverpool end up also getting their goal and winning. It just doesn't matter at the end because Manchester City create this remarkable comeback. So congratulations to City on yet another league title. 4-5. But this literally went down to the last second because had Aston Villa scored, the Steven Gerrard coached Felipe Coutinho including team, that would have been Liverpool's. That is how close we came. So at the end, we got the result we expected, but certainly did not see it going that way. And for a while there, both teams were not doing what they needed to do. It wasn't even like Liverpool had jumped out to a lead, and this was a question of whether City came back, and City knew they had to go take care of this because Liverpool were already up 2-0. Liverpool knew. I mean, that was in more. Liverpool had a larger portion of those games while they were in control of their destiny than Man City did. But City show up when it counts the most, get their 3 goals, and the Premier League title. And this is another example of the resilience and mental toughness that people, at least some people, just seem to think doesn't exist within this Manchester City team. Do they have the same mental fortitude as Liverpool? No, probably not. That's something special Klopp has instilled. But to suggest that this team just crumbles anytime something goes wrong is false. And they showed it again today. Now, this one was tense, which gives you got to give even more credit for pulling themselves out of it and rising to the occasion. But my larger point is when they get in these title races with City and when it or with Liverpool and it comes down to the wire, it's neck and neck. They show up and they do their job. Right? They're not choking away Premier Leagues. And the way this played out was almost more of a Champions League kind of setup than it was a Premier League setup. Just because you were sort of playing this aggregate game, right? Of okay, this is the situation, so we need X, Y, Z. Okay, so now we need this combination. And of course, they knew they just needed to win in the end. But it had some of that every moment, everything could change kind of feelings you get in the Champions League much more than a domestic season. And they answered the bell. Ilkay Gundogan in particular. Pep brought on his subs, and they made a massive difference. So, say what you want about City. They are certainly not valiant underdogs by any stretch of the imagination. But they did prove their mettle once again, and it's not like they are waltzing to every single one of these Premier League titles. They do have a championship DNA. And because of the names, the money, Pep, what's happened in the Champions League, I do think that gets forgotten or undervalued at times. And they made sure that was not the case when it mattered with everything on the line at the end of the Premier League season. There was no drama in the race for the top 4 at all. Spurs got out early, which pretty much sealed it because Arsenal needed a lot of things to go right, and Liverpool and Spurs going up certainly didn't help that. Tottenham ended up with a 5-0 win over Norwich to clinch 4th place. They will be in the Champions League next season. Arsenal also win, which makes what Everton did on Thursday even more important because they had already secured their safety. This was as sort of antithetical to everything you think about Tottenham as it could be. And that's Tottenham fans included, because I've heard this sentiment and it's understandable. It would be a very Spursy thing to somehow throw this away. Antonio Conte said, no. We are going to do our job, and we are going to do our job emphatically. We're going to make this about whether our player can win the Golden Boot outright rather than whether we're going to get 4th. And ultimately, Son Heung-min doesn't do enough to win it outright. He splits it with Mo Salah, who scored for Liverpool, so congratulations to both of them. Phenomenal seasons. And at the end of the day, Antonio Conte did what Antonio Conte always does. and that is change the culture, the narrative, the DNA, whatever words you want to use, of the team he arrives at. He says wild stuff sometimes. He's erratic. He's incredibly emotional. Sometimes you just don't know what's going to happen next, as Tottenham fans have experienced at this point with all the uncertainty surrounding next season. But my goodness, that man knows how to instill a mentality and how to overcome things at clubs. He did it at Inter, and he's done it again here. Right? He is changing. He's not there yet, of course. And this is a flawed roster. It's not like everything was perfect. But you look at where Spurs were when he took over, and you look at where Spurs are now. It is an incredible coaching job. And a credit to these players for stepping up and getting elevated by that coaching. But to me, this is exactly why Manchester United messed up so badly not hiring him when he was available. It's this right here. He is one of the very, and I think I've said this before, but Klopp's done it at Liverpool. Xavi is potentially on his way to doing it at Barcelona. Certainly is making progress toward this. But you just don't have very many people that can go in there and wipe a slate clean and sort of reprogram things. He has just this force of will about him that is incredibly valuable when you are a club lacking direction, underachieving, and just needs something to define it. Manchester United are absolutely in that spot. This is my whole thing with Erik ten Hag. It makes all the sense in the world on paper. He's a brilliant tactician. Visually, it's outstanding quality of play. He certainly is going to elevate them in attack. Can he do this part? Can he do the reprogramming? You had a guy you knew could. You let him go to another team, and that team is in the Champions League. Well, you end up in the Europa League if you're Manchester United because West Ham couldn't hold on to their lead against Brighton. So United lose again, but ultimately it doesn't matter because West Ham can't capitalize. So United get the Europa League spot. West Ham, 7th place, Europa Conference League. And then we get to the relegation battle. Oh boy. This was a very interesting one. You had practically simultaneous events where it looked like Joe Gelhardt had put Leeds up and Newcastle had been awarded the penalty. But then Gelhardt was slightly offside, but Newcastle score, so Leeds are now back out of the relegation zone. And it just kind of still going that way for most of the game. And then, very close to in proximity time-wise, Brentford score and Burnley score after Callum Wilson had added a second for Newcastle. And so all of a sudden, Leeds are now one goal in either game away from being relegated. Ultimately, there's not enough time left for Burnley. Brentford go down a man in a bizarre series of events. And Jack Harrison, MLS, Wake Forest product, scores to give Leeds the cushion they need. Ultimately, they didn't end up needing it. The point would have been enough because Burnley did lose. But that extra cushion, you could see the release of all the emotions coming out of Jesse Marsch. Leeds are able to do it. I will have more coming on Substack about the job Jesse Marsch has done at Leeds. All I'm going to say here is you don't understand who this guy is as a manager and his track record if you thought for a second that team was going to quit. Maybe they were going to go down, but they were going to go down having left absolutely everything on the field. They were not going to go down in embarrassing fashion. And they were not going to be fazed by all of what was happening around him when all these teams started picking up points. He is also one of the, it is a very specific quality he's able to instill, but that just the grittiness, the ability to just sort of block out certain things and just keep going is absolutely one of his great gifts. And again, sort of that force of will thing that not many managers have. He's got it at least in that regard, and it's enough to keep Leeds up. Now Brendan Aronson is reportedly coming in. Big summer to make sure this doesn't happen again, but Leeds do the most important thing, which is making sure they end up 17th, not 18th. Burnley, heroic effort to try and get out of a bad situation. It's hard to make the argument that firing Sean Dyche backfired. I certainly did not expect them to be this close to staying up when they made that decision. They got that new manager bounce, and then it just kind of didn't stick. So, they are going down to the championship. But that is by no means the only other important events that took place in Europe this weekend. You also had the Women's Champions League final. Lyon, Barcelona. This is the matchup you want, these two teams, and certainly it delivered. Amadine Henry opens up the scoring with a absolute worldie. If you haven't seen it, you have to go watch it. It gets better every single time. It is one of my favorite goals I've ever seen. And then, much like their previous meeting in the final, it goes from bad to worse from Barcelona. They don't know what hit them, and it's 3-0. Third goal coming from none other than Catarina Macario, making her the first U.S. international to score in a Champions League final. Congratulations to her. She is an exceptional talent, incredibly bright future with the U.S. women's national team. What separated this game from that previous meeting, though, was Barcelona were able to get the goal back before halftime, thanks to Alexia Putellas. And so all of a sudden it's 3-1 at half, and if Barcelona get the next goal, game on. That was what didn't happen. It completely spiraled out of control last time. They were able to stop the bleeding. It just wasn't enough in the end. They couldn't get that second goal. Couldn't really kick on from the goal they got. Lyon were comfortable in the second half and ultimately prevail. I believe that's 8 Champions League titles overall and 6 of the last 7. Of course, Barcelona having the other one last year. And this was, and I talked about this previewing the game, this was Barcelona's opportunity. The one thing they hadn't done. They had not gone up against the best of the best, the standard bearer when it comes to this competition, and taken them down. They had won it. They had obliterated everybody in La Liga. They are clearly improved from the last time these two teams met at sort of the beginning of Barcelona's rise when they first arrived on the scene. And so now you come back a couple of years later and plenty of people view you as the favorite. This is your opportunity to get this done and close the door. Make it very clear you are the team to beat. Best team in the world. And to get blitzed again this way. And to not really have an answer for it. We can't have that conversation for another year, at least. If they get back to the final, face Lyon again, and beat them, okay. Now I'm willing to have a conversation. If they had lost this game close or in a shootout or something, then absolutely. I'm not a person to put an incredible amount of stock in single games. Be it the NCAA tournament, Champions League, whatever. Knockout competitions have a random element of luck that needs to be taken into consideration. But what Lyon did on that field was not luck. That was called outplaying your opponent and just being mentally superior. And so, congratulations on a terrific season, Barcelona. Clearly an exceptional team. You're going to have to take this thing from Lyon. Lyon are not just going to capitulate and let you take what they view to be yours. Very much sort of the way on the men's side Real Madrid view this competition to be theirs. This is going to be a really fun rivalry. Hopefully, we get plenty of more these matchups. But on this day, there was no disputing who the better team was, who the best team in Europe is. That is Olympic Lyon. We also had another title clinched in Italy. Congratulations, AC Milan. Never in a million years, 2 years ago, did I think we would be talking about this. But 3 goals in the first half against Sassuolo. Make easy work of it. No stress whatsoever. First league title since 2010-2011. And by the way, since winning that title, the trophies they've lifted are Super Cups, one of which they got into because Juventus won both competitions, the Coppa Italia and Serie A, so somebody else had to go play against them. But here they are, champions of Italy. It's incredible, and to me this is all about the lack of margin for error in Italy right now, and how quickly this thing has evolved. Right, when Max Allegri left, at least I certainly was not thinking this was about to turn and felt like somebody was really going to be capable of challenging Juventus and the stranglehold they had on this league. Sure, there were questions, and maybe they take a slight step back, but nobody was close. Then it gets a little tighter that year after he leaves, but they end up winning. And then you go and hire a manager with no previous experience in Andrea Pirlo, and it goes from shaky to bad. And here's Inter Milan ready to pounce with all of that money they spent on all of those veterans to make a run at it. Lukaku, Eriksen, Vidal, Ashley Young, you just go down the list. All this money they're spending. And then we go from that to their financial issues, which lead to the sale of Lukaku and Achraf Hakimi over the summer. And then the question becomes, okay, clearly Juventus is in rebuilding mode. They're not ready to compete for this thing again. AC Milan were hanging in there for a while last year, but can they do it for a full season? But also, is this Inter team as good, almost as good, nowhere near as good, without Lukaku and Hakimi? You can make a case those were your 2 best players last season. Certainly Lukaku was their best. Absolutely no doubt about it. And so they drop off a little bit. You have the one goalkeeping mistake that ended up sort of being the defining moment in this title race. And Inter Milan are there to pounce. Second year in a row, you can sort of point to, somebody takes a step back for some reason and you've lost this thing. It is that tight. And eventually Juventus is going to get back up there and it's going to be even tighter. But that is what makes this league so great right now is we don't... it's going to be Liverpool and Man City, and the question is how does that play out between the two of them? But to have a league where you go into a season not really sure who your favorite is, feeling like there are at least 2, but closer to 3 or 4 teams that can really compete. This is the only of the big 5 leagues that have that right now. And so we got a terrific title race that went down to the very end. And now the question is, well, what happens next? Can Inter reclaim it? Can AC Milan defend their title? You already have, for example, Frank Kessié is going to Barcelona. There is going to be a step back when that happens. He's been excellent. What happens in this transfer window? I mean, the big name so far is Divock Origi. Now, granted, they just won with, Olivier Giroud and Zlatan Ibrahimovic as options at striker. And Giroud in particular playing a lot. So, you're not trying to replace a Erling Haaland or Robert Lewandowski up there. But there's nothing that suggests that they're going to sort of build on this and become a dynasty. Just like there was nothing that suggested Inter were going to do that. And so we're sort of back at square one of going into next season. We'll see how the summer goes and what teams are able to do. But that was really what struck me about this and why I've become so intrigued with this league is you make one, a managerial mistake, a mistake on the field, you have a bad transfer window for whatever reason, like Inter Milan did over the summer, and that's costing you the league. It was right. They didn't just fall away, but absolutely you have to think if they've got Hakimi and Lukaku, they win again. But you let AC Milan hang around some last year, get that experience, get back into right. This team is not used to being in title races, so you give them that experience. You let them do it again. You're a little bit weaker, new manager, and they get another go at it, and here they are, champions of Italy. And this is just great for the sport, too, because, boy, do we need these Milan teams to be relevant. This was part of my thing with the Super League. I think I've mentioned this before, but you're throwing an AC Milan and Inter, and they haven't done they've done next to nothing at that point. Now we're talking. We've got, multiple Champions League qualifications. Now each of them have won a title. This is what we need. The big question for Italy overall is, can you get to a level where you're on par with Bayern, the top Premier League teams, Real Madrid, because they haven't shown up in the European stage yet. That's the next step. But the first part of this is we need to get somebody to dethrone Juventus, and we need to make this interesting and get these other big clubs back to where they should be. And over the past 2 years, and really 3 years, we have gone from this is all Juventus to this is wide open, and Juventus is significantly behind these two Milan clubs. So, again, congratulations to AC Milan. This is awesome for Serie A, for the sport. And we'll see how this all plays out heading into next season. That's all we've got for today. Super long video, but so much to get to. There will be nothing coming out tomorrow with regard to weekend recap. This is sort of our Monday content, just doing it a day in advance. So also we'll have our 5 things from the week coming out this afternoon, Sunday afternoon. So be sure to subscribe to get access to that. And we'll be back for the live show on Wednesday. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube as well so you don't miss any of our content going up